Hi, this is Chris Young, and welcome to episode 56 of Contemplating Life, Oscar edition. This week we continue looking at the 10 films nominated for Oscar in the Best Picture category. We'll look at two vastly different films on the same theme in a grouping we call Revenge of the Robot Women. Consider this plotline. A beautiful young woman is not naturally born, but is an artificial creation. She is confined in a world created for her by her maker. She lives a happy yet mundane life. She slowly becomes aware she's more than what her maker envisioned. Her natural curiosity and a desire to contemplate what life has to offer sends her on a quest into another world. It's a bizarre environment that's alien to her, but she explores it with vigor and discovers there's more to her life than she believed was possible. In the end, she becomes an independent, self-actualized woman who's in control of her life. At first, she extracts revenge on the men who tried to possess and control her, but ultimately finds a way to peacefully coexist with the males of the species. Okay, pop quiz time. Is this a description of the film Barbie or the film Poor Things? The answer is both. There was much hype this year about the popularity of Barbie and Oppenheimer that we shipped the names together and came up with Barbieheimer to describe the phenomena of people who went to both films on the same day. It was only a coincidence that the films were released about the same time and unexpectedly found overlapping audiences, which led to the Barbieheimer phenomena. There should have been media hype about Barbie's connection not to Oppenheimer, but to Poor Things. While Barbie and Poor Things are vastly different in approach and style, the outline in my opening paragraph is a reasonably accurate summation of both films. The filmmakers use vastly different approaches to tell the same story of a woman discovering her potential. Barbie is set in a fantasy world known as Barbie Land and is occupied by the namesake toy. She journeys into the real world, and although we are familiar with it, it's an alien landscape to her. Her fantasy world of Barbie Land is all she has ever known. In contrast, in Poor Things, Bella Baxter is the creation of a mad scientist. He discovered the body of a pregnant woman who had leapt to her death off a bridge into a river. He salvaged the brain of her unborn child and implanted it in her 30-year-old body. He then reanimates her body in a scene typical of any Frankenstein movie you ever saw. Her literally infant mind develops quickly, and she approaches life with an insatiable curiosity. This eventually leads her to discover the pleasures of sex, first by herself, then with a lover, and finally as a French prostitute, all of which is depicted in explicit detail. So while there was an unlikely crossover of audience between Oppenheimer and Barbie, Poor Things is extremely R-rated and not appropriate for the typical Barbie viewer. Now, it's more likely you're familiar with Barbie, given its popularity, so let's talk about Poor Things first. Willem Dafoe plays Dr. Godwin Baxter, a brilliant surgeon who bears horrible scars and disfigurement on his face. This is the result of his father performing multiple medical experiments on him when he was a child. These experiments included genital torture. To say that the physical scars are only part of his problem is an understatement. Rather than be called by his given name, Godwin, He prefers to be referred to as God and makes that request unapologetically. He's a deeply twisted individual. Emma Stone plays his creation, Bella Baxter, whose origin we described earlier. Rami Youssef plays Max McCandle, an ambitious medical student who is recruited by God as his Igor-like assistant, without the hunchback. Max's job is to observe Bella and record in notebooks everything that she does as she rapidly progresses in mental and emotional capability. As the film opens, she has the mind of a very young child. She's awkward both physically and emotionally, yet she begins progressing rapidly. Even her hair grows at an astonishing rate of an inch every few days. No explanation is ever given why. God keeps the girl isolated in his mansion laboratory to keep the experiment of her development pure and untainted. But God himself also avoids appearing in public because of his disfigurement. Now, Bella is not his only experiment. The courtyard of his villa is occupied by strange hybrid creatures, such as a goat with a dog's head or a dog with a duck's head. I forget what other weird combinations he has running around his courtyard. When Bella reaches the mental age of what appears to be maybe 8 or 10 years old, she discovers on her own the joys of masturbating her adult body and asks, why don't people do this all the time? God notices her sexual awakening as well as Max's attraction to her. So God concludes that the next phase of the experiment should be that Bella and Max are wed. He employs an attorney named Duncan Wedderburn, played by Mark Ruffalo, to draw up a marriage contract that includes the provision that Bella must remain sequestered in God's house. Intrigued by this strange request, Duncan sneaks off into the mansion to meet Bella for himself and discovers this childlike creature in the body of a beautiful woman. He decides that he, not Max, should be the one to introduce her to adult life. He's quite a cad and a sleazy person, and plans to exploit her for his own pleasures. Together, he and Bella plot her escape, and they go off on a romantic tryst to Lisbon, Portugal, where they engage in frequent sex and debauchery. The setting for the film is a bit of a steampunk Victorian setting. All of the interiors look relatively normal for such a setting, but the moment that Bella goes anywhere outside, everything takes on a surreal, dreamlike quality, which by comparison would make a Wes Anderson film seem boringly normal and realistic. The film makes use of varied cinematic styles and techniques to set the mood. While sequestered in God's house, the film is in black and white. But like Dorothy escaping Kansas to Oz, once she leaves the house and goes on her adventure with Duncan, everything is in bright, oversaturated color. Most of the color sequences were shot using Kodak Extrachrome, which gives it that oversaturated, bright color look. Those that were shot on other types of color film were color adjusted to match. You see, Extrachrome is a slow film that requires significant lighting, so the filmmaker had to use other films when more light was not available. The cinematographer also makes use of a variety of strange lenses, including highly distorted fisheye lenses. And some of the scenes, filmed through a 4mm lens, look as though we're looking through a peephole. I never did exactly figure out what these various points of view were designed to evoke. Bella has absolutely no inhibitions and no filter, so she says exactly what she's thinking at any moment. At one point, when she and Duncan are out to dinner, there's a baby crying nearby, and she announces,
"I must go punch that baby."
Duncan has to restrain her as she rises to actually go do it. Bella eventually leaves Duncan to explore the city on her own, and because he's fearful that he will lose her, he decides to drug her, stuff her in a trunk, and take her on a cruise ship where she'll be unable to escape him. While aboard the ship, Bella befriends other passengers. By this time, she's begun reading and has gained advanced intelligence. She debates philosophy with her new friends and reads volumes of books to expand her mind. Meanwhile, Duncan gambles at the ship's casino and wins a small fortune. When the ship docks at its next port, Bella notices that there are poor people in the world, with sick and dying children. She takes all of Duncan's money and tells the ship's porter to give it to all these poor things, these unfortunate people. She didn't notice how broadly the porter smiled as he took the money, obviously to keep it for himself. Now the pair are penniless, and they're forced off the ship in France, and Bella happily turns to a life of prostitution, because it gets her the money that she needs, and it involves her favorite pastime, sex. Duncan literally goes insane, having lost complete control of her. We later see him as a shell of his former self in an insane asylum. Bella is now a highly intelligent, self-actualized person who's not going to be exploited by anyone. Although the film is highly bizarre, and the surreal setting and weird cinematography can make it difficult to watch, overall I found it very funny, strangely enjoyable, and worthy of all the accolades it's received. Emma Stone is nominated for an Oscar as lead actress. She's already won the Golden Globe for lead actress in a comedy and the BAFTA award for lead actress. Even though this is a bizarre creature who's played over the top, it's a fantastic bit of acting. She transforms from the childlike creature we see at the beginning of the film through the sex-crazed, uninhibited adolescent into a sex-crazed young woman, and eventually a highly intelligent philosopher. It's an amazing bit of acting. With those wins already chalked up, she's the odds-on favorite for the Oscar, but she might face stiff competition from Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon. If Gladstone wins, it would make her the first Native American to win a major acting Oscar. I rank it as my 7th favorite film of the 10 Best Picture nominees, but don't take that as a slight. I really enjoyed it. I can't exactly recommend it to everyone. You have to have a bizarre sense of humor, and you have to be able to deal with the explicit sex scenes and the overall surreal nature of the film. I liked it, but then I'm kind of weird. It's a strange new take on the Frankenstein legend. The film has earned 11 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director for Yorgos Lanthimos, who is also nominated by the Directors Guild, Lead Actress Emma Stone, Supporting Actor Mark Ruffalo, Adapted Screenplay by Tony McNamara based on the novel by Alasdair Gray, Cinematography, Production Design, Costume Design, and Makeup and Hairstyling, all of which are richly deserved. It's also Oscar nominated for for original music score and film editing, for which I have no opinion. Mark Ruffalo gives a memorable performance as the sleazy lawyer who tries to exploit Bella. And what's not to like about Willem Dafoe as a mad scientist? I wish that Dafoe had gotten more nominations. Ruffalo probably won't win the supporting actor, but he's definitely worthy of the nomination. The film has 11 BAFTA nominations, including Best Picture and Best British Film of the Year. It had 7 Golden Globe nominations, which did include a supporting actor nomination for Willem Dafoe. Emma Stone won the Golden Globe for lead actress in a comedy, and the film won Best Comedy. Stone and Dafoe have also received SAG nominations for lead and supporting roles. The IMDb lists 395 nominations and 90 wins at the time of this writing. It's earned over $32 million in the U.S. and Canada since its December premiere, and over $93 million worldwide. It is currently available only in theaters, but should be available for digital download or streaming very soon. Moving along. For our purposes, I'm going to assume you have not yet seen Barbie, but given its popularity, you may have already seen it. Anyway, Barbie is set in the fantasy world of Barbie Land. It's occupied by dozens of women, all named Barbie, and a bunch of men, all named Ken. Our lead character, played by Margot Robbie, is known in the film as stereotypical Barbie. She's the swimsuit-wearing, dream house residing, pink convertible driving Barbie that you normally think of when someone says Barbie. Other Barbies include an African American president, astronauts, doctors, lawyers, the entire Supreme Court, Nobel laureates, and every other occupation ever imagined for Barbie. The main Ken character is played by Ryan Gosling. He's the stereotypical Ken, who is blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and who hangs out at the beach. He's accompanied by a variety of other Kens of various ethnicities. None of them have an occupation except for what they call beaching. He's not a lifeguard, by the way. He just hangs out at the beach and spends his days pining for the attention of Barbie. It's a perfect world in which all of the Barbies are happy. They believe they've saved the women of the real world because they've proven that since Barbie can be anything, so can you. Although Barbie's daily routine is a bit monotonous and repetitive, one day she starts feeling some existential dread. She starts thinking about death. She also has other bizarre feelings that are foreign to her. Among the transformative changes she is experiencing is that suddenly her feet are no longer fixed in the typical high-heel-wearing position that Barbies are known for. Now her heels actually begin touching the ground. She's directed to seek help from someone known as Weird Barbie, who's brilliantly played by Kate McKinnon. Weird Barbie has bizarre makeup drawn on her face in crayon. She's always in an awkward pose, usually very severe splits. Her hair has been cut at an odd angle and is always a mess. She is what happens to Barbies who are played with too hard and then left in a box in the basement for too long. Weird Barbie advises stereotypical Barbie that something is wrong with the girl who's playing with her. The girl is unhappy and her negative emotions are bleeding over into stereotypical Barbie. This opens a portal between Barbie land and the real world. Barbie's only remedy is to travel to the real world, find the girl who plays with her, and figure out what's troubling her. So Barbie sets out on this quest, and is accompanied by Ken, who stows away in the back of the dream car. Barbie finds the real world to be completely unlike what she expected. She thought she would be a hero in that world. She believed because she was a role model who proved that women could do anything, she expected the real world to be dominated by powerful, independent women. Obviously, it's not. On the other hand, Ken is pleasantly surprised that men are respected and not just an unimportant companion for the Barbies. He does some research and discovers that the world is a patriarchy in which men rule. While Barbie seeks out her owner, Ken returns to Barbie Land and begins taking over as he teaches the other Kens the principles of patriarchy. Initially, Barbie believes her owner is a tween girl named Sasha, but soon discovers that Sasha and her friends hate Barbies.
We haven't played with Barbie since we were like 5 years old.
Yeah, I hated dolls with hair.
I mean, I played with Barbie, but it was like the last resort. I love Barbie. You've been making women feel bad about themselves since you were invented. You represent everything wrong with our culture. Sexualized capitalism, unrealistic physical ideals.
No. I am technically stereotypical Barbie.
You set the feminist movement back 50 years. You destroy girls' innate sense of worth, and you are killing the planet with your glorification of rampant consumerism.
No, I'm supposed to help you and make you happy and powerful.
Oh, I am powerful. And until you showed up here and declared yourself Barbie, I hadn't thought about you in years, you fascist.
Eventually, Barbie discovers that the source of her angst is actually Sasha's mother, Gloria, who's played by America Ferrera. Gloria is a secretary at Mattel, and in her spare time, she begins designing new Barbies based on her own inner fears and turmoil. She found an old Barbie and began playing with it as an adult. And that's the source of our main character's transformation. The FBI alerts the executives at Mattel that their creations have infiltrated the real world. In a panic, the Mattel executives, led by their CEO, Will Ferrell, eventually round up Barbie and attempt to put her in a box to be transported back to Barbie Land. This will close the portal and set things right again. Barbie narrowly escapes Mattel headquarters with the help of Gloria and Sasha. Then Barbie takes Gloria and Sasha with her as they return to Barbie Land, where they discover that the Kens have taken over. They brainwashed all of the other Barbies, including the president, the Supreme Court, the doctors, lawyers, etc. Now the women are all airheads who are obsessed with serving the needs of the Kens. In a pivotal scene, Gloria delivers a monologue about how difficult it is to be a woman in the modern world.
You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary. But somehow we're always doing it wrong. Like, you have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but
also always be looking out for other people.
This causes the brainwashed Barbies to snap out of it. Can they regain control of Barbie Land? What will the Kens do if they succeed? And now that stereotypical Barbie has been to the real world and had her eyes opened to the imperfection of reality, what will her life be like? Can Gloria and Sasha heal the broken mother-daughter relationship? Writer-director Greta Gerwig has created a phenomenal work in this film. It is a hilariously funny, yet deeply poignant and touching exploration of the roles of men and women. Even though I'm male and never played with Barbies, it nearly brought me to tears of nostalgia over my love of my favorite toys. I can't discuss this film without mentioning the opening scene. It's a parody of a classic film. I don't want to spoil it for you, so I will describe it in detail in a spoiler section at the end of the podcast. You can skip it if you want. For now, let me just say I have not laughed harder at a film in decades than I did in that opening scene. As it unfolded, I realized what was happening. I realized very early in the scene what film it was spoofing. And at one point, I said to myself, if that girl playing with dolls starts to do what I think she's going to do, I'm going to lose it. She did. I must have laughed out loud for 10 minutes. I had to pause the movie, wipe my eyes. Anyway, hear all about it in the spoiler section. The film has earned 8 Oscar nominations, yet many critics claim that the lack of a nomination for director Greta Gerwig and for lead actress Margot Robbie was a serious snub. I have to disagree. Keep in mind there are 10 films nominated for Best Picture, but only 5 nominations for Best Director and 5 nominations for Lead Actress. Let's look at the competition for Director. Justine Triet did an amazing job in Anatomy of a Fall, and happens to be a woman, so we can't say it was sexist that Gerwig did not get nominated. And just because Martin Scorsese has been nominated as Best Director 10 times, that's more than any other living director, it does not mean he should have not been nominated for his amazing work in Killers of the Flower Moon. Christopher Nolan very much deserves his nomination for Oppenheimer and is likely to win. Yorgos Lanthimos showed amazing creativity and vision in bringing to life the bizarre world of Bella Baxter in Poor Things. And finally, in a film we've not yet discussed, The Zone of Interest is a stellar achievement by director Jonathan Glazer. He's found a new and innovative way to explore the horrors of the Holocaust without actually showing us any of those horrors. We simply hear them. I would bump no one from this list to make room for Gerwig. She did get a nomination from the Directors Guild. Along with her co-writer Noah Baumbach, Greta Gerwig is Oscar nominated for her adapted screenplay. I believe this is where her creativity and contribution to the film are truly Oscar-worthy. It's a brilliant bit of writing. Now that nomination is not without controversy. The Academy considered Barbie an adapted screenplay because Gerwig did not create the characters, Barbie, Ken, or any of the others. This is a ridiculous distinction. There's nothing in the lore of Barbie remotely related to the story she's created. This is not an adaptation of an existing Barbie-themed book, cartoon, or any other work. The children who play with Barbie create their own stories. Barbie, as created by Mattel, is simply an image, not a character. This isn't like Transformers or G.I. Joe or other toys with movie, TV, and comic book tie-ins. Typically, when a work is listed as an adapted screenplay, for example, American Fiction, the credits list the author of the book upon which it is based. This was also true with The Zone of Interest and Poor Things, both of which were somewhat based on novels. And Christopher Nolan has made it clear that Oppenheimer is the result of research from many sources, including written biographies of the real man. He did not create the character Oppenheimer, so it's an adaptation. Now, while I cannot defend the criticism that Gerwig was snubbed by the lack of a director nomination, the criticism of this screenplay being listed as adapted is very much an appropriate complaint. This is a highly original screenplay. The Writers Guild of America nominated it as an original screenplay, as they should have. Now let's look at Margot Robbie's competition. We've not yet talked about the film Nyad, in which Annette Bening plays long-distance swimmer Diane Nyad. It's an amazing performance, a very memorable character. Lily Gladstone's performance in Killers of the Flower Moon, while not my favorite among the 5 nominees, it's clearly Oscar-worthy. Carey Mulligan's performance as actress Felicia Montealegre, the wife of composer-conductor Leonard Bernstein in Maestro, was a quality performance. German actress Sandra Hüller was previously unknown to me, but she delivers one of my favorite performances of the year in Anatomy of a Fall. She's also quite chilling in The Zone of Interest, where she plays Hedwig Hess, the wife of Auschwitz Commandant Rudolf Hess. But she was not nominated for that role. Had these films premiered in different calendar years, she might have been nominated for both performances. And finally, Emma Stone will likely win Best Actress for Poor Things. So who would you bump? I wouldn't bump any of them. The question we should be asking is, how did Ryan Gosling get nominated for a supporting actor as Ken? He did a good job. It was a funny character, but I don't think there was anything that special or memorable about his performance. In fact, I went back and watched the entire film a second time, just to focus on his performance. After 2 viewings, I didn't see anything that impressed me that much. In contrast, I will always remember Willem Dafoe in Poor Things, although I can understand why he would not be nominated in the same category as Mark Ruffalo for the same film. Nominating 2 supporting actors in the same film usually means neither of them will win. I would have liked to see a nomination for Rhys Ifans, who played in Nyad as John Bartlett, the navigator who helped Diana Nyad make her way from Cuba to Florida. I will long remember his performance long after I've forgotten Ryan Gosling. Although I hated the musical remake of The Color Purple, I could have given a supporting actor nomination to Coleman Domingo for his role in that film. Fortunately, Domingo is nominated as lead actor in the film Rustin. We'll talk about those films in a future episode. I have no problem with the supporting actress nomination for America Ferrera. I think it's very much deserved. Her delivery of that monologue I talked about was just brilliant. And there were other aspects of her performance that were quite memorable and touching. Barbie ranks as my 8th favorite of the 10 nominated films. I very much enjoyed it, and if you've not seen it, I highly recommend it. The film has 8 Oscar nominations: Best Picture, Supporting Actor for Ryan Gosling, Supporting Actress for America Ferrera, Production Design, much deserved, and Costume Design, also much deserved. They've gone to meticulous detail to create Barbie Land based on actual Mattel products sold, such as the houses, cars, and especially the wardrobes. There are about 6 or 7 big musical production numbers and songs. 2 of the songs are nominated for Oscar. One of them, I'm Just Ken, by Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt, wasn't a bad song.
Doesn't seem to matter what I do, I'm always number 2. No one knows how hard I tried. I have feelings that I can't explain. They're driving me insane. All my life been so polite, 'cause I'm just kidding. Anywhere else I'd be a 10. Is it my destiny to live and die a life of blonde fragility?
But the odds-on favorite for the entire category is What Was I Made For? By Billie Eilish O'Connell and Phineas O'Connell. It's a very touching and emotional song. It's already won 2 Grammys, one for Song of the Year and one for Best Song Written for Visual Medium. The song also won the Golden Globe. Here's a brief excerpt from the music video by Billie Eilish. Check out the link to the full video in the description. It's a very touching video on its own.
I used to float, now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now what I was made for. What was I made for? Taking a drive, I was an ideal, looked so alive. Turns out I'm not real, just something you paid for.
Barbie has received 5 BAFTA nominations. There were 9 Golden Globe nominations, and it won in a category called Cinematic and Box Office Achievement, whatever that means. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling and the entire cast, as well as stunt performers, have received SAG nominations. Overall, the IMDb lists 417 nominations and 167 wins to date. With an estimated budget of about $100 million, it was released in July and has earned over $600 million in the U.S. and Canada, and $1.4 billion worldwide. It is still showing in theaters and is available for streaming on Max and available for purchase or rental on Amazon and YouTube. Note that on the Max streaming, there is a special version that includes an American Sign Language interpreter superimposed in the lower right corner of the screen, in addition to the usual available closed captions. So if you do watch it on Max, I recommend that you view that version to inflate those viewing numbers. This will encourage Max and perhaps other streaming services to provide such versions of films in the future. And the sign language interpreter is not distracting. So, a quick update on where we go from here. In previous episodes, I said I was only able to see 9 of the 10 Best Picture nominated films. Well, good news. The Zone of Interest is now available for digital download, rental, or purchase. So now I have seen all 10 films, plus 4 other films that were nominated for acting or screenplay awards, or were not listed for Best Picture. I'm going to try to get out 3 more episodes before the Oscars are awarded on March 10th. I've not been able to get them out on time on Monday, but we're going to go full speed ahead and try to get out these 3 episodes between now and the Oscars. Stay tuned after my typical closing comments for that spoiler-filled description of the opening scene of Barbie that made me laugh so hard I cried. If you find this podcast educational, entertaining, enlightening, or even inspiring, consider sponsoring me on Patreon for just $5 per month. You get early access to the podcast and other exclusive content. My finances are a mess, but I don't do this for the money. Still, every little bit helps. As always, my deepest thanks to my financial supporters. I'll never be able to express what that means to me. Even if you can't provide financial support, please post links and share this podcast on Facebook and other social media so I can grow my audience. I just want more people to hear my stories. You can always check out my back episodes, and please feel free to comment on any of the platforms where you find the podcast. Tell me what you did or did not like about these films. I'll see you next week as we continue contemplating life. Until then, fly safe, everyone. Okay, now we gotta talk about that opening scene from Barbie. I just discovered that scene was spoiled in a teaser trailer that was released weeks before the film. I'm disappointed that they spoiled it, because it was great. If you've not seen that trailer, only continue if you've seen Barbie, or if you don't care if the beginning gets spoiled. The film opens with Helen Mirren doing a voiceover narration.
Since the beginning of time, since the first little girl ever existed, there have been dolls.
But they were always baby dolls, thus putting the girls in the role of the mother. The scene then shows about a half-dozen girls, aged maybe 4 or 5 years old, sitting outdoors on a rocky terrain, playing with baby dolls, strollers, teacups, and plastic dishes. That stark scenery, along with the phrase, "since the beginning of time," immediately told me that this was an homage or a spoof of the famous Dawn of Man sequence in the classic Stanley Kubrick film 2001: A Space Odyssey. If you're unfamiliar with the opening of that film, it shows a bunch of pre-human ape-like creatures struggling to survive in a harsh, rocky desert environment. Suddenly, a giant dark gray monolith appears in their midst. One of them cautiously approaches the slab and touches it. It emits a strange sound. Suddenly, the ape-like creatures have gained intelligence. They discover how to use tools. Specifically, one of them picks up a long bone from a carcass and begins swinging it as a club. He discovers it makes him powerful, and he begins violently smashing a pile of bones, sending bone shards flying in every direction. He then tosses the bone into the air triumphantly, and we get a crossfade to the year 2001, with a shot of an orbiting satellite. Mankind has transformed from the use of primitive tools like a bone club to the sophisticated technology of space travel. So, back to Barbie. The narrator says that this role play of being the mother of baby dolls continues until...
But the dolls were always and forever baby dolls. Until...
And then they cut in the iconic music, also Sprach Zarathustra, from the film 2001. We then cut to a 10-foot-tall Barbie doll that suddenly appears on the landscape in the same way that the monolith appeared in 2001. Or rather, it's Margot Robbie as Barbie. The girls cautiously approach Barbie as the music continues, and when they touch her, a strange buzzing sound emanates. Then we cut to a close-up of one of the girls holding her baby doll with two hands by the doll's feet. It was at that moment I said to myself, "Oh my God, if she starts bashing that doll on the rocks and busting up the plastic dishes, I'm going to lose it." Just as I expected, the girl begins swinging the baby doll like a club and violently smashes it into the ground, shattering her plastic dishes and the skulls of porcelain dolls, sending debris flying everywhere. Then she triumphantly swings the doll into the air, and we get a crossfade to the Barbie logo. I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. I had to pause the movie and dry my eyes before I could continue. I cannot remember the last time I laughed so hard in a film. Now, okay, if you're not a mega fan of 2001 Space Odyssey, then you're probably not going to laugh as hard as I did. But I hope that if you did see the movie, I hope you enjoyed it at least half as much as I did. I found out much later that this 2001 spoof appeared in a teaser trailer way before the movie opened. There are several people on YouTube who have created side-by-side comparisons of the Barbie trailer and the opening scenes of 2001. But these mashups are based on the trailer, and that trailer is shorter than the scene appears in the actual film. Also, in the actual film, the girls smashing the baby dolls are much more violent. Now, I'd try to make my own side-by-side comparison based on the film version instead of the short trailer, but I'd probably end up getting a copyright violation for it. Perhaps somebody else will dare to do a better mashup of the long version. I provided a link to the Barbie trailer as well as one of the better side-by-side comparisons between it and 2001. But you really need to see the beginning of the movie to fully appreciate it. Tune in next week for more movie reviews as we continue contemplating life. Until then, fly safe, everyone.